if we are relying on locally grown source food, we won't be in such a dangerous place where we can see a shortage where there is no meat. We need to support these small ranchers.
Flipping the table.
If you are a Flipping the Table listener, you'll know that I pay lots of attention to the challenge of meat production because meat is controversial. The vegans and carnivores frame extremes of the debate, and like many Democrats and Republicans, they cannot seem to find a workable compromise. Most Americans believe meat is a big part of the proper human diet. But an increasing number believe we need to move beyond meat and greatly reduce its consumption. And a very small number believe that regenerative agriculture requires livestock, and that livestock will not exist without a market demand for meat. And I'm part of that small minority. And I'm also a carnivore who loves my vegetables too. One of the realities driving the critique of meat is the existence of confined animal feeding operations, or CAFOs. Confined animals cannot enjoy their instinctual lifestyle, and thus they suffer. And CAFOs concentrate pollution and harm rural communities, and they make many farmers into cogs in the industrial machine, loaded with debt and trapped in a system that degrades their land. This podcast focuses on the future of food and farming, so my livestock conversations focus on regenerative farms and ranches, with a particular emphasis on grass-fed beef. And if you listen to this program, you'll know that I often feature many women as guests because I believe that women lead the good food movement. In today's episode, we are featuring 3 women leaders from California who operate regenerative livestock farms and seek to ensure access to good quality meat in a way that serves producers and consumers. My guests include Kathy Webster from Tomcat Ranch in Pescadero, which produces the Left Coast grass-fed beef brand. Kathy is the ranch's advocate for systems change and manages the overall Left Coast operation, including certification, processing, and marketing, while also helping to run its Fork to Farm educational programs. Sarah Silva is co-founder and operator of Green Star Farms in Sebastopol. She raises poultry for meat and eggs, as well as lambs, goats, and hogs. And she runs an egg and meat community-supported agriculture program, properly known as a CSA. Duskie Estes is the co-owner of Black Pig Meat Company, based in Forestville. Duskie is a celebrity chef, seen on several Food Network shows, and has been my guest in 2 previous episodes. Together, these 3 entrepreneurial, fast-paced, and smart women are tackling one of the greatest hurdles to the expansion of regenerative farming and ranching, and that is the challenge of meat processing. So, please enjoy my conversation with Kathy, Sarah, and Duskie about the exciting new Bar C meat processing project. Well, good to be with the 3 of you today. And so I'm with Duskie Estes and Kathy Webster and Sarah Silva, and we're here to talk about their new venture, Bar C, which we're going to learn all about. But before we do that, let's why don't each of you comes to this project from a different place in the meat supply chain. So if Duskie, why don't you start? Just explain to people what you do and why you jumped in to aid small regional meat producers.
So I'm Duskie Estes, and I had a farm-to-table restaurant for 19 years in Sonoma County called Zazu, and currently have Black Pig Meat Co., which is a bacon company and a snout-to-tail product company, which means we make lard soap and lard lip balm and other goodies like chicharron peanut butter cups. And so how I come to it is as a buyer. I was a buyer that cared very much about my sourcing of my ingredients, and it mattered to me the impact on the world of my purchases. And so I was dedicated to knowing the space that feeds you, and that every animal that gave its life for us to eat should have a great life and only one bad day. And I was dedicated to purchasing from over 200 farmers and ranchers in Sonoma County for our restaurant, which we lost in a flood that happened in 2019. And so now I still am a chef and a farmer and a rancher myself. We raise rabbits, goats, sheep, pigs, ducks, chickens in our backyard. And what I saw in the last 6 months that I did have Zazu was the rapid loss of ranchers. It was something that I saw over the 19 years, but in the last 6 months of Zazu, we lost access to local rabbit, local goat, and local lamb, all at the same time. And that had to do with the reason for the creation of Bar C, which I think we'll get into after you hear from the other guests as to what their backgrounds are. But so I came to it as a chef and a buyer that cared very much about the impact of my purchasing.
Great. Kathy.
I'm Kathy, and I'm the food advocacy manager at Tomcat Ranch. I've been at Tomcat for 14 years now, and I help manage our Left Coast grass-fed marketing label, which is our grass-fed beef, and help coordinate our certifications and distributions, and work closely with getting good food and good meat specifically to schools, hospitals, food banks, and the under-resourced insecure areas. So I've always been very passionate about our food and to get good food out there, we have to have resilient regional food systems. So I knew there was always a bottleneck in the processing industry by handle all the animals when they're ready to go to harvest. And back in November, December, I knew that issue was getting more and more narrow, and I am connected with a lot of the Sonoma and Marin grass-fed ranchers, and was talking to my good friend Guido Frassini, and so he said we were all meeting about how we could address this problem, and I said, I'm there.
Okay. Great. Sarah.
Hi, thank you, Michael. My name is Sarah Silva. I'm a rancher out in Sebastopol in Sonoma County. So I've been producing meat, particularly chicken, goat, pork, lamb, and eggs. And let's see, I missed something. Anyway, I've been doing this since 2008. This whole work for Bar C has been something our community has needed since I started ranching. And that's why I'm here. As a producer, in 2019, at the end, we found out that the only USDA slaughterhouse that was within 150 miles of us that could harvest all of our animals was shuttering its doors to us. And that was a huge hit to our ranch and a lot of the ranchers in our community. We no longer could just drive our animals, twice a month to a harvesting facility within 30 minutes. Now I'm traveling 8 hours, 10 hours a day sometimes just to get my animals harvested. So the whole Bay Area Ranchers Cooperative, RC, has been, it's going to be a lifeline for a lot of the local ranchers.
That's great. So all of you come to this because there's a huge problem, obviously. And so I would be interesting, Sarah, why don't you describe what is Bar C exactly?
So, Bar C is the Bay Area Ranchers Cooperative. Right now, we are 16 local ranchers that have come together to solve this problem, which is this lack of local processing. Right now, the way it's designed is we're an agricultural co-op, so every rancher, every member of this cooperative is a producer. All three of us on this phone call are all producers. It is also an agricultural co-op that doesn't discriminate based on the size of your ranch. So you can be a small producer and a medium-sized producer, and we can all be treated equally here. And so Bar C is going to be a local cooperative. We created this in July 28th of 2020, and we are right now designing and doing fundraising for a mobile harvesting unit and local cut and wrap within 50 miles of about 60% of us currently raise our animals.
Uh-huh. So, Kathy, what is a mobile slaughter unit?
It's basically an infrastructure for slaughtering animals on wheels. So it allows us to get around use permits, which is often required in various counties because it can move if we need to move it.
Uh-huh. It's on a trailer? Is it a trailer? Describe for people what it would look like.
Yes, it's a fully contained unit in a giant trailer.
Mm-hmm.
So in there it has rails and hooks, and it also has a little office for the USDA inspector.
I got it. Okay. And then, Duskie, describe what a cut and wrap facility is, because this is the combination of what you're building here, what you're putting together is this combination of the actual slaughter facility, the mobile unit, and then cut and wrap facility. Is that correct?
Yes. So currently what happens for our ranchers is they are driving up to 250 miles to take their animal to harvest. And then that animal is coming back and it needs to go to a cut and wrap facility where it is then broken down into sellable pieces. And so cut and wrap is basically an in-house butcher that also some of them can make sausages or make bacon. So have the ability to grind and to smoke, which is what we're seeking to do. So we want to offer to the ranchers. They won't need to stay with the cut and wrap facility if they want to go to their own, but they can get an all-in-one where they can harvest the animal and get it cut and wrapped or even made all the way into a smoked product or a sausage product.
Okay. So Bar C is a mobile solution, I guess it's a combination of a mobile slaughter facility and a specific place where they would be brought to be cut and wrapped. And what's the footprint? How far are these 14 ranches that are part of the co-op now? I guess I have two questions. One is, you have 14 ranches now. Is it going to grow beyond that? And what is the current footprint that you're reaching of ranchers and farmers?
So I'll take a first answer at it, but I'd love for my other two pals to add on. But basically, when we started meeting in January after the December shutdown of the local processing plant to direct-to-consumer ranchers, we met with 80 ranchers to tackle this problem. We formed the co-op with 16. We want at least 30 ranchers to be members of the 80. And when we did the market research in order to write a business plan for 7 months, we worked on a business plan with a lot of consultation of a lot of great minds. We did research among those 80 ranchers, and we found that the need far outpaces the capacity of our mobile unit. The need in our community is 200% the capacity of the unit. So we will certainly be busy and we may need to get another. So this is a good problem.
Interesting. Okay, good. But and what was the region? Did you say how far?
This is all for all of the Bay Area. I
Uh-huh.
mean, so we're looking at people. We're looking at Marin, North Sonoma, the East Bay, the South Bay. Tomcat is all the way down, Kathy, Pescadero. You can explain your area. We are looking all over. This will support our entire Bay Area region.
So that's like 100 miles from the coast to the inland, and 200 miles from the south to the north.
Yes, and and that's why the location we're looking at right now, somewhere in Sonoma County, will be, roughly 60% of these people will be within 50 miles because of the centrality of our current hoped for location.
Wow. So, Kathy, what are the greatest challenges to making this project work, do you think?
Well, it's interesting you asked, because when we first started working on this, I thought, a mobile unit, the USDA has always been, they don't work. But I think because this was really led by ranchers and for ranchers, and we had really amazing stakeholders like UCA&R and Stoddard.
Who's that? University of California Agricultural and Natural Resources College?
Yes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, the extension office. Prince Potter is the representative from Marin County. He was our fearless leader from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And also Keith Taylor from UC Davis, who specializes in cooperative. I think because there was only like 6 or 7 of us really focusing and working on it and doing our due diligence and doing our research and meeting with people that have these units that work. Like, we've met a few times Bruce Dunlap from Island Grown, which is a cooperative that owns a mobile unit up in Bainbridge Island in Washington State. We just showed the numbers and did the research, and it was really making it work. So I say the biggest challenge right now that I think we can do this is getting the funds to put the order in for the unit. I don't see it as a huge challenge because I think our story is so it's a natural solution to building a resilient regional food system.
So let's talk about that. Actually, let's get into that, because I think all of us have talked and certainly are focused on the challenge of COVID and how it's disrupted the meat supply chain. We know here in California that the largest poultry processing facility in the state had to shut down. 8 of its workers died from COVID. We know that across the country, that after prisons and senior care facilities, the number 3 source of concentration for COVID cases is meat processing. We know that drought and fires are deeply impacting food producers. And we all know, as you've described, that the concentration of the meat industry, the industrial meat industry, has limited the number of facilities. And there are 2 kinds of facilities people probably should understand, right? There are federal facilities, that is, facilities that are inspected by USDA inspectors and have associated costs, additional costs for those inspectors, $100 an hour for a USDA inspector in a plant. And then there are state-inspected plants which don't have the USDA, but that meat in a state-inspected plant cannot be sold outside the state of California. So, let's describe what you envision for the meat system. Let's say, well, it could be across the United States or here in California. What kind of a meat system do we need to not be so disrupted by these different things we're experiencing? Kathy, do you want to take a shot at that? And I want to hear from each of you on this, but Kathy, why don't you start?
Yes, I would love to. And I just want to correct one thing you said, Michael,
Okay.
because consumers cannot buy any meat from a rancher unless it is inspected meat. The animal has been inspected by a USDA facility.
Can't buy directly.
Otherwise, yes, if it does go to a state inspected facility, they stamp it not for sale unless you buy shares. So the way I see it is there are 27 states in the United States that allow a state inspection or equal to an inspection to FSIS, which is the Food Safety Inspection Service, the subset of the USDA that does meat inspection. It would be nice to re-examine California state and how we could make that work in our state, so that there are more options for small and mid-sized ranchers. Because there are very limited number of USDA, especially multi-species facilities. I believe there's only 5 multi-species USDA facilities in our state. And that bottleneck just keeps getting narrower. And I know you mentioned the COVID pandemic and the impact it had on the meat plants, but that resulted in the bigger producers squeezing out the smaller ranchers and mid-sized ranchers because they started going to those small and mid-sized plants to get their animals processed. Mm-hmm. So it's all of this is really highlighting our need to decentralize food systems.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that these big centralized plants, when something happens, it basically shuts down the primary sources of food. And there were shortages. People couldn't get meat in certain places. I saw it in my grocery stores around here. You couldn't, in the shelves, like there was pork missing for a while and other things.
Yeah, I mean, our dependence on big ag puts us very much at risk to these shortages. If we are relying on locally grown source food, we won't be in such a dangerous place where we can see a shortage where there is no meat. We need to support these small ranchers so that we do have continued access to local food. And then, because in California, there is no need to face a shortage. We just need to make sure the policy supports them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll add to that, the smaller rancher and the smaller facility, we can be more resilient. We have the ability to be more flexible than the big ag does. We can adapt to the changes that, climate change, COVID, all of these things are thrown at us. We were discussing today about the advantages to the mobile harvesting unit and smaller plant design with respect to the worker safety. And, the thing that people don't realize is in these big plants, you have people shoulder to shoulder. There's no room for social distancing. So it's inherently dangerous. There's also, one person doing one small cut where we have multiple people that can do multiple things in our small plants. So there's a little bit more redundancy. And, with COVID-19, we're designing this entire business around safety protocols. So we're really going to be, not only are we resilient ranchers designing it, but we also are designing it in the world of COVID-19. And I think for that reason alone, the small producer and the small, plants are a safer and a more healthier solution to our food system.
Mm-hmm. Well, you brought up, the three of you have kind of raised some issues I want to dig into a little deeper. One is the fact that rural communities for the last 50 years have been experiencing this incredible degradation of their economies. I remember when I was a kid and we would drive through the Central Valley on the way to the Sierra, or we would drive to Southern California on either Highway 5 or 101. The rural towns were vibrant. They weren't boarded up downtown. There weren't buildings closed. There were vibrant economies. And now, over the last 50 years, you've really seen the poverty grow in our rural regions. The rural regions are the poorest parts of California and across the United States. The same thing's happening in the Midwest. Small businesses can't survive. So I'm just curious if you think that what you're doing will have synergistic positive effects on rural economies. Kathy, you want to take a stab at that?
Well, one of our goals of the BARC is not just solving a solution to our greater Bay Area ranchers, but also to create jobs. And that is one of our big hopes, is it will provide increased jobs for our regional rural communities. But in long term, we talked about doing some kind of an educational opportunity, because I think that's really lacking in our rural communities.
Mm-hmm.
And to further, on that point would be that we also are looking to create a model, something that this could be sort of a cookie cutter model for other regions. We've had, I think we were just talking a couple today, we have at least 3 different groups looking at producing mobile harvesting units, and possibly ag cooperatives contacting us right now. So this model is really, has a lot of advantages. And I also think it could be, it puts the power back in the rural community instead of taking the power out. With the ranchers and producers running the plants that they actually need, it's a symbiotic relationship, and will makes more of a resilient model that can be used in all over the country.
So, the thing I'm thinking is, I don't know how many livestock ranches, that is ranches that produce meat, exist in California. I know there are like over 70,000 farmers, 72 or 77,000 farmers in California. So the question in my mind is, are you envisioning that there would be mobile slaughter units all over the state, or are you thinking it would be a combination of mobile slaughter units and, let's say, refurbished older plants that have been shut down, or new facilities like the Belcampo Meat Company, new facility up in Northern California in Siskiyou County? I mean, what's your vision of what this would look like in 10 years? Duskie?
Well, I think Sarah kind of addressed it a little bit, but we built this model as a replicable model that other regions can take, that you have to drive even further away and can replicate this. So it's not reinventing the entire wheel. We actually met last week, or maybe it was a few days ago. I had Zoom overload. With a group from Ohio State University as well, and they had some local ranchers on the call as well, and they're trying to figure out a similar situation, and another group we're supposed to talk to in Kansas. So it could be replicable all over the nation, because it would be a USDA facility.
And I also think, to answer your question further, I think the answer is yes to all of those possibilities. Yes, this could be an example of how we keep the properties where we have plants that are no longer cost effective to run because of the upgrades, but they have all the proper permitting in place. These mobile harvesting units are a box. They're a plant in a box, and we can place them there. There's modulars, there's cut wrap facilities as well. There's red meat, there's poultry. We have this idea you can use with enough space. You can use these plants under multiple circumstances. So an old plant, yes. A retired area of an old plant to upgrade it without having to worry about the old infrastructure. Because, upgrading old infrastructure can cost you more than brand new infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And often it does. Mm-hmm. So, and, just in our survey, that the group that helped inform the BARC group, which is called the MUST group, we had just 80 direct-to-consumer ranches in Northern California produce 10,000 head of livestock annually. And that's just 80 direct-to-consumer ranchers. We know that there's so many more. So we only looked at a very small piece of a pie. So this entire model could be, and it's a small plant. So, we're not going to be able to serve all 80 of those ranchers, because that would be 2 times what we can handle in our mobile harvesting unit. We would have to get another one, which the beauty of this model is with the need, we could get another one.
Well, yeah,
and
yeah, that's what the reason I asked this, because the critics, the industrial meat critics of this kind of an approach will say, well, it's inefficient. And so I'm trying to get at, what they mean by that, because if there were, let's say, like you said, like if there are, let's say there are 10,000 ranchers in California, and half of them decided to go with a direct to consumer approach, that'd be 5,000. You could put 2.5. And not every county in the state of California produces livestock. There are some counties that are very, like San Francisco or LA. There is some in the east part of the county, but less. And drier places are harder. The desert doesn't produce. So not all 58 counties of the state would be producing. But, I was just thinking that if you put on average 2 to 3 plants in every county, separated by a certain number of miles so that they weren't competing too much, you might be able to take care of 5,000 ranches if they were mid-sized producers or smaller. But that would be like 100 mobile plants in the state.
Okay. When Big Ag's response is that this way of harvesting animals is inefficient, when we did the study on 12 ranchers, just 12 of our ranchers have already driven around the world once since the closing of that plant to them in January. So they've already driven over 26,000 miles. So to me, that is what is inefficient. And if you think about the rural economies that you were discussing earlier, if you keep these 80 ranchers that were shut out in business, that is 80 family businesses and all of their employees, in addition to the butchers that we're adding, in addition to being a model for these other places in Ohio and Kansas that are having the same issue. So, luckily in Northern California, the consumer does understand the value of local food. The amount of miles that our food is driving to us is awful. And so if we can have these more regional plants, the amount of miles that each rancher is putting on, will be minimized by, I think our math said 78%. So that is a savings of inefficiency, no doubt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so are you going to finance this, raise the money to build the plant and operate the plant, or to start the operation of the plant anyway? Because obviously it's going to have to pay for itself, it sounds like. But, are you going to raise all of that from private capital, or are you looking to grant programs or government programs, or is this going to be private capital completely?
Mostly we're looking for private capital. We're seeking to raise $1.2 million but before the end of the year. So, and we're seeking to put a deposit on the mobile unit by the end of October, ideally. So we need to have gathered $500,000 by the end of October.
And how are you feeling about doing that?
Let's have Sarah answer that one.
Sarah, let's hear.
I say we feel really, really good about doing that. Right now, our goal is to raise $500,000 by the end of the month, like she mentioned, and we have a WeFunder campaign that we're just done our soft launch. It goes public October 21st, and we, as of just today, have raised $23,000 on that portal, and it's not even public yet. We have a total of about $130,000 raised. Plus, we have our members that will be contributing. So all the ranchers will be part owners too. So there'll be the ranchers will be contributing to that 1.2 million as part of their membership. And we have our WeFunder campaign, which is WeFunder Bay Area Ranchers. It's WeFunder.com at
WeFunder Bay Area Ranchers.com.
Well, let me say that. I'm sorry. WeFunder.com/Bay Area Ranchers. That's our WeFunder campaign.
Ranchers. Okay. And And what are the investments? Is there minimums or?
Yeah, there's a minimum $500 investment. And the best part about this is it's really designed for the community. So the dividends, half of the dividends will be paid back in what we are calling co-op credit, which will be credit that investors can use to purchase local meat from the members.
So if I put $1,000 in, I get $500 worth of credit to purchase meat?
No, it's in your dividends. That would be nice. So you get a certain 2% the first 3 years, and then 4%, half in cash and half in co-op credit from then on out on your initial investment.
Okay, interesting. And so you're going to run this campaign till the end of October or to the end of the year?
Oh, we're going to keep running it. Yeah, no, actually, it's scheduled to run through April. But our goal is to stop it when we hit our $1.2 million mark.
And how are you getting the word out on wefunder.com/Bay Area Ranchers?
Well, here's one example right here. The beauty of this is we are reaching out to our community because we already are a direct consumer marketplace. Every rancher has their own community of customers. So we hope to reach out to all of our community members to get this funding because it really benefits the entire community.
So they're going to send an email to all of so Morris Grass-Fed Beef, who was on here a few weeks ago, they're going to send it out to their members, and you guys are going to send it out to your customers as an email and invite them to join. Is that how it's going to work?
That's the idea.
Are you going to do the slow food chapters across California?
Well, we already presented to Slow Foods last week, so we are already part of this our work on what last Wednesday, up until last Wednesday, was to do a Slow Foods presentation, which Duskie and I did last week.
That was Slow Foods.
Oh, well, sorry, you're right. Thank you, Kathy. That was Slow Money, not Slow Foods.
Okay. Oh yeah, how'd that go?
So that was Slow Money. It went great. It was fun.
Uh-huh. And do you think Slow Money members are going to pitch in money?
I think so. We've had good response, lots of good questions. These are good investors, so we're still talking to them, making sure all the questions that we have that they have that get answered. And I think it's looking really good that we'll meet our first goal of the 500K by the end of October.
And where does this plant get built? Where do these facilities come from? The slaughter facility.
Well, Kathy, you mean the mobile units? Mobile harvesting
where's the
unit?
mobile harvest unit?
Yeah. Kathy's probably good at that.
Yeah, we've been mostly looking at units built by a company called Frisla, Frisla, and they're out of Washington State. And they build state-of-the-art, fully ready to be plugged in and ready to go units that are, they have new and used ones.
Cool. And then they ship it down here in one of those big trucks you see on the road that says wide load.
Correct.
Yes. I don't even know if it says wide low. Isn't it just a big old big rig?
But yeah, most likely.
Yeah, it can be. It's just it's a big truck that you wouldn't probably know what it is.
It looks like a big rig, so it's hauled by a tractor, so a tractor trailer kind of situation.
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
There's actually one in place in California down in Paso Robles right now that's being used.
Okay.
Not a Frisla unit, but it's a mobile processing unit.
And it's working. They're enjoying that. It's working, serving them down there.
Yes, actually, that's where we ended up taking our animals to harvest.
Okay.
It's owned by J&R Meat, which is the USDA cut and wrap facility.
Very cool. And the other question I had is there any the co-op members, are they going to be farming or ranching using any systems? Are they regenerative or organic or grass-fed, or are they conventional? How's that work?
I think the answer is all of the above. we are not going to be telling our ranchers how they should be ranching. A lot of us are regenerative ranchers and have carbon farm plans and all those things. However, there's just the whole variety, and that's the diversity of the ranching community around here. It's good that we can support all of those different types of ranchers. We have organic certified ranchers, and for example, Tomcat is an animal welfare certified ranch, and so she could speak to the specifics of that. And we hope to be able to accommodate all of the different styles of ranching in our community.
What about the fact that doesn't organic meat have to go through an organic facility, and a non-organic meat can't go through an organic facility? How's that work?
Yes, that is true. And I honestly, as the treasurer, don't know if the degree to which we will be organic certified. I believe the intention is to have that done, but right now that's not the primary goal. I think one of our main goals was the animal welfare inspection. Is that right, Kathy?
Yeah. So at this point, that's what we're mainly looking at right now.
Okay. So, so this will not be organic. So I was just going to say, have you reached out to the organic community? But this will, it's not clear that it's going to be suited for producers who want to be labeled organic in the grocery store or through their own sales. If they're direct, it's probably less important, right? I mean, a lot of direct producers aren't selling organic. They're telling their story, right?
All the rancher members are direct to consumer.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a need for being organic, we will definitely do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I know there's very few lamb organic harvesting plants in California. I think only one exists,
mm-hmm.
and not to the smaller community. So we know that there's definitely the need. It's just at this time, the bigger and greater need is to get the mobile harvesting unit in place, because we're all driving so many hundreds of miles every month,
mm-hmm.
Getting our animals harvested, which is not a humane way of ranching, and none of us like it. So
it's very
that's
hard
our
on
first
animals.
primary focus.
Yeah, they're stressed by being placed in trailers and dragged all over. So what about I know that Tomcat is focused on regenerative practices to use animals to capture carbon and regenerate soil and ecosystem. So that's not going to be part of the storyline here at all. Kathy?
Well, I think Sarah said the majority of us actually do practice the regenerative practices, and a lot of us actually work with Point Blue Conservation Science to do the monitoring and the soil work. But we're not going to discriminate if somebody isn't doing that. But that said, the majority of, all of our board members already practice regenerative practices.
Yeah, and if they're selling direct, they're telling their story to their customers, and their customers have their values set, and they're purchasing based on that, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So I get it. And it makes sense. I mean, right now, you've got to build the capacity to just slaughter more animals and wrap them so they can get out to the marketplace so people can buy safe, healthy meat from a local producer. That is the primary bottleneck in the state and in the country. So that seems very important that you do focus on that first. Maybe if you do build a second one, that'll be your organic line. If you need a second facility as this thing grows. So you said you have 16, or was it 16 or 14 that are members now? 16, and you want to get to 30.
32, ideally.
32.
At least.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, at least.
Uh-huh. Cool.
That's going to be easy.
That's not going to be the hard part. Yeah, and what about talent? Let's just talk a little bit about, before we end here, I just want to talk a little bit about the talent of finding, all the people you have to find to run a plant like this. You need people to manage it. You need people to know how to humanely slaughter an animal. You need people to know how to cut the meat and wrap it. And you're feeling good about all the talent. I know Sonoma County and Marin County attract a lot of people who are into these things and come from the kind of the restaurant industry, and I love to do this kind of stuff. Are there plenty of people here to get hired?
I think we definitely have a short list, and we also are, looking at acquiring a plant that already has staff that could also be added to our pool. So there's already, we have a short list of for lead butchers and so on and so forth. So the answer is yes. There definitely are people in our community that have these skill sets, and we are also working with, looking at something that could potentially already come with some help.
So in the little time that we have left, are there some closing comments that any of you want to make about how people can, remind people how they can help you get this off the ground? I know I'm going to join in the effort. I'm going to write a check. I'm going to join this thing because I really think it's important that we get local meat processing that serve the small, medium-sized producers in this region who are struggling to survive because of our industrial meat system kind of stealing all the capacity for processing animals.
Yeah. I think it's important to say our mission at Bar C is simple. We're here to serve our community of ranchers and farmers by providing access to local processing with transparency, honesty, and dedication. We're an operation that's by ranchers and for ranchers. And if anyone has any questions about, the Bay Area Ranchers Cooperative, either as a member or investor, they can email us at invest@bayarearanchers.com or visit us at our website at www.bayarearanchers.com. Great.
Well, thank you all. And good luck, and definitely let's stay in touch. I want to hear what's going on because I'm sure. Oh, I know, and you've said it. You said already 3 different places are in touch with you to look at your model. I know that there are going to be ranchers all over this state, all over the West, all over the nation who want to see you succeed because they need this lifeline. So, best of luck.
Thank you so much, Michael.
All right.
Thank you, Michael. Everything you do, we appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Hey, this is Michael. As you know, Flipping the Table is sponsored by Roots of Change. You can keep our program going by making a contribution to Roots of Change through our website, rootsofchange.org.